Welcome to Sharing My Truth with Mel and Susie, the uncensored version, where we bear it all.
We do.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello. Welcome back. I'm so happy to be here with you guys and my little friend Mel over here. And I'm Susie, and this is Sharing My Truth Pod. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast. It really helps us out. And follow us on social media at Sharing My Truth Pod. Hello, darling babes. How are you?
Hello, darling. I am fabulous.
I'm sorry. That's a new word for you.
Yeah, it's a bit Mary Poppins-esque, isn't it? I just came to me.
You're like the Mary Poppins who is on crack.
On crack?
Yeah, you're Mary Poppins on crack. But mostly like rosé wine.
Mostly rosé wine.
But that's
yes.
like crack in England.
Yes, we do.
Do you guys have crack in England?
Sadly, we do.
No.
Possibly not relevant to this. But we drink a horrendous amount. We are, over the top.
Yeah, but I mean, to come up with Mary Poppins, you had to be on crack.
Exactly.
Well, I just want to say it's been a good week. We've had some amazing progress with our viewership.
We have.
And we just want to thank you guys so much for being with us in this journey. And it's really been a fabulous thing. And we're just keep on keeping on here.
I know. And the comments and everything, I personally love.
You live.
I love it.
Yes.
It's fabulous. And
Mel is our TikTok queen.
I do really I like to see what people are talking about.
Yeah.
I want to see what's really happening from my little Gen X viewpoint.
I know. You want people to share their truths with you.
I do.
And it's good because they are.
They are. I do. I love it.
It's so funny.
I totally love it.
No, it's fabulous. And then, we're talking today about women's dirty minds.
We are.
And are they as dirty as men's minds?
Yeah, we are. And it is.
Yeah, you know that's firsthand.
What, as a woman or having a dirty mind, or both? Yeah, I mean, I think it's a constant source of conversation, and I think from my perspective, from a Gen X perspective, I think women were so held back in the sense we were supposed to be a certain thing, which is sort of lovely, nice, feminine, nice smelling, lovely lady who doesn't possibly think about,
peonies all the time, darling.
Yeah, who doesn't possibly think about whatever whips
clitorises.
Clitorises.
Yes, clitorises. And wet penises.
Wet penises. Well, I think it's a bit more than that. It's a bit more than, it's like just having the sense that men can be more kind of out there in their thoughts or more erotic or whatever than women, which is just completely mad. I mean, why would that be the case? And the thing that I find really interesting was going back to our comment about why I like looking at TikTok and people's comments and Instagram, whatever, because obviously I come from, I'm Gen X, I'm 50, so you're innately going to have a viewpoint on life, and you grew up in a certain era, and obviously I'm British and I have my silly posh accent, so I come from a certain
such a silly posh accent.
I come from a certain kind of way of thinking or whatever you want to call it. So you have a certain viewpoint that is very, very hard, or perspective to detach yourself from, because it's kind of ingrained in you. And I find it really interesting that we're still having this conversation all these years later with, particularly Gen Z who and younger millennials like yourself, who are much more sexually liberated in the sense that you're much more open-minded about sex. But we're still having this conversation that we actually think there's a difference. And of course, there are differences, and there are differences between different men and different women. But to actually assume that men are the sort of naughty ones in the equation and the women are not, which is what we're sort of saying, is completely mad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a lot of male and female friends, and I mean, I talk about so much more dirty shit with my girlfriends than I do with my guy friends. And I'm close enough with my guy friends that I could talk about, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just we want to talk about sex. We want to talk about BDSM. We want to talk about all these dirty things that happen to us and like the play-by-play of every sexual encounter as well, and our fantasies and exactly what we want.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because men just don't talk.
Oh yeah, I think that's a
You
huge.
know?
I think that's a huge thing. I mean, I think women do get together and talk about sex, whereas men only talk about it in a sort of competitive way.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, I did that girl and blah
Yeah,
blah
you
blah.
fucked her.
Yeah. We don't want to, not in the sort of, sort of Donald Trump-esque whatever he said in the
No.
locker room kind of talk. But I mean, men are more competitive about it, whereas women, I don't think in this really are. I mean, I don't think you sort of compete with, oh, so is your sex life better than my sex life? I could be wrong. Somebody's going to come for me if I say that. But I just think women talk about it differently. And I definitely think the generations talk about it differently.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say... And I also think certain cultures talk about it differently. I mean, I would say, like, in England, surprisingly, people think that we're super reserved, and which, we are in certain things, but then, you get a few glasses of rosé in us, and we're away with the...
You guys generated some of the best comedians, Ricky Gervais, who is just an absolute fucking tyrant in his own right. Of just the dirtiest shit you could say on TV.
Yeah.
But like, I love that stuff. But it's like there's so many people who also love that stuff, but won't admit it as well.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like they'll be
100%.
like, oh no, I've never thought that, or like that's disgusting. Why would anyone? And it's like this is reality, and there's no way that you actually don't. It blows my mind if that's true that they never think about it or if they've never thought it. That it blows my mind that it's never crossed their mind.
Yeah, but it's that old saying, isn't it, that what people say and what they do are totally two different things. And I think that particularly for women, for some bizarre reason, well, I suppose it's not bizarre, it's society has told us, has ingrained in us that we're meant to be, feminine, and we don't possibly do these, naughty things or have these naughty thoughts. And but what's strange is that we're still thinking that. And I think, I've said this to you before, that you're somebody who's very connected to who you are. I think that's pretty unusual. And I've certainly met other, younger millennials like you or Gen Zs who are still pretty prudish. And I find it really strange, almost kind of weird that we've had so much progress and you're still prudish.
I think,
it's something deeper.
Well, it's how a lot of people are brought up.
100%.
And like religion, which also plays a huge part in it.
Religion is huge, but I just think for some reason women are still sort of, they have this thought process that they're meant to be a certain way. And it goes to this thing that drives me mad. And we did this in a previous episode about slut shaming. And as you know, I hate the word slut. Word.
I like it.
We know you like it. But it goes back to the same thing. Like, if you even have that word, you're saying that women who sleep with a lot of men are innately the connotation is bad or something like that. Whereas men, we don't even have a word.
We call them a playa.
Exactly.
Playa hating.
I mean, it goes back to another thing I was saying to you earlier, is because we did this episode, our last episode was about MILFs. Like, you try and put the word MILF in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And although obviously it stands for something, but it's just letters. Daddy, which essentially, has slightly different connotation, but it's still sexual and it's about fucking
very sexual.
Older men, right? That is perfectly fine to put all over TikTok and all over everything. Because we have some kind of weird thing that if it's like sugar daddy and all this, like, it's, women going out with older, sometimes that's wrong, but it's okay. It's all these things that we have these weird ideas about, and it holds us back.
Yeah.
And I think my generation, of course we were held back. And I would say for me personally, like I said, I'm 50, I'm British, I'm a little bit posh. So I was brought up in a slightly restrictive mindset. My parents never, ever talked about sex.
Yeah.
Although my father had sex with absolutely everything that moved, nobody talked about sex in the home.
Yeah.
Nobody had never had the conversation. Never, ever. I went to a girls' school. Of course, there's no internet.
Yeah.
So it's not like
You can't look up
can
porn.
Look up what is whatever.
Anything. Yeah.
You can't look up
You go
anything.
to the library.
Exactly, which is not very helpful, as you can imagine. And porn in those days was magazines on the top shelf in what we call newsagents, where you go to
Yeah.
like the store
And you have to ask the clerk to
right.
get it for you.
And a
your
5-foot
cigarettes.
woman is not going to go in and go, "Can you just get me a step ladder to
And you, oh my God, that'd be so amazing.
So whereas obviously men just went. So the whole thing kind of perpetuated itself,
Yeah.
and so women didn't. Or you develop this idea, which is just not true.
Well, here's like, there's just the small things, right? Where men's nipples are totally fine
Yes.
on social media, anywhere. In reality, in life, they walk around without a shirt off. You can't have a tit out just to even feed your baby.
You can in Europe.
Of course,
When
Europe.
we're totally
I mean,
different.
we're moving. I'm moving there.
Yeah.
I know you've lived there. I'm moving there. I fucking love Europe. The fact that you can just, it's so sexually open
Mm-hmm.
in Europe, but like here in Canada, in a very progressive way,
Yeah.
and it is. I think it is legal. You can actually, a woman can have their shirt off, but it's societally not
Weird.
okay
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that unless you're like on a nude beach on Toronto Island.
Yeah.
Like it's not okay to have your titties out,
Mm.
which pisses me off because
I
I would
find
love
it-
to tan naked.
I actually find it infuriating.
Yeah.
The thing, and this has got nothing really to do with anything, but one thing that drives me mad is even when hot men
Mm-hmm.
are like on a hot day,
Mm-hmm.
hot men on a hot day are
Love
out
hot
like
men on a hot day.
running or whatever,
Yeah.
sweating profusely
Yeah.
with their shirt off,
Yeah.
and sort of going like a
Yeah.
peacock. It drives me.
Oh, I love it.
But it drives me mad because if
Yeah.
you're a woman,
Yeah, you can never.
you couldn't go out with like your boobs swinging
Well, your
around.
tits are gonna be fucking flying everywhere
well,
anyways.
I can't run anyway because I've got a sort of engineering problem with the fact my boobs are too big. But anyway, and keeping them in one place.
Keeping them
But
in one
this
place is
This
difficult.
is a big discussion.
It'd be
for
very
another-
uncomfortable to run with no sports bra. That would be another.
Oh no, I
thing.
need like several.
right.
It's awful.
To pick them up.
Yeah, they need. It's like a bridge, you know. But it just annoys me that, and
Yeah.
what I mean by what annoys me is that men are allowed, and they're sort of, look at me, and you're like, but women can't do that. It's annoying. But it goes back to this whole thing that we somehow think,
Yeah.
but it makes no sense because if women and we're talking about heterosexual relationships, if women are the ones having the dirty sex with the dirty men, then
Yeah.
surely they're dirty. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah, but we're dirty,
no
but
sense.
they're not dirty.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're just there to what?
It's just so funny. Like I've always like found that I feel great that I am a dirty person.
Mhm.
Not like dirty as in like filthy.
no,
not like dirty as in dirty.
you're
Not like dirty as in not showering, but dirty as in sexual,
erotic.
super hot, erotic. I
like
like
the name.
have
word erotic.
very dirty thoughts. I've always had like
You don't
know.
shy away.
I do not shy away from
Mm.
anything sexual, and I like take so much pride in that because there's so many people that just can't talk about even so many of the things that I find so normal to talk
Oh,
about.
yeah.
I have so many friends who are just not interested in speaking, or you can tell that a lot of things make them uncomfortable
Yeah.
when you bring up something, or and if we're in a group of us and it's like you'll see some of us want to talk about it, some of them are like just they
Interesting.
don't chime into the conversation, and I'm like, you are 27, 28, sometimes like 24, 25, like you guys
What's the
don't want to
issue?
talk about sex. Like
Yeah.
this is something we've been fighting for as
Mhm.
like as so-called feminists and just women in general. Like we want to talk about
Mm.
hot, dirty sex just like men.
Yeah.
Just like you can admit that you want to have a dick.
Admit that you want to have a
Admit that
dick.
you want to have a dick and maybe
Wow.
a pussy. Admit it
Yeah.
all. Just admit that there's a part of you that wants to be a little dirty and sexual, and I love the word erotic.
It's the only way I can think
Mhm.
of describing it, because I think that women, there is definitely, I personally think that women are just as if you want to use the word dirty. It's just that
Dirty,
women are like
sexy,
erotically more
Yes.
creative, and men are sort of more
Yes.
filthy dirty.
Okay, well, you know what's so
Is that-
funny
is
about that
filthy
too?
dirty?
So I mean, there's so many types of porn, right?
Mhm.
So obviously you have video, which is the most popular, especially because all men are very visual people.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, as women, like we love audio
Yeah,
porn, and there's so much amazing audio
Yeah.
porn out there.
Yeah.
There's so much written erotica, and so much of this is written and produced by women
Mm-hmm. For women.
for women.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it's produced for women because we're the only ones who are gonna listen to
Yeah,
porn,
for sure,
right?
for sure.
We're mostly the only ones who are gonna read porn
Of
now
course.
that men can watch it anytime they
Men are
fucking want,
never
right?
gonna listen to
But that's
it.
what's so funny. It's like, no, we have literally just the dirty mind, but as you said, like we're just more creative about it. We actually we need all of the stimulation instead of just one thing.
At
Men
this-
are able to just come in their pants. And we usually can't do that.
I think it's just more
That would be such a talent.
A talent.
Imagine.
I think it's more sensual, or women are more interested in a connection. And I don't mean I'm not talking about love. I'm not talking because I think that would be foolish to think that every kind of interaction that women have, and I think men do think this, that they need to be in love with you, which is just not true.
No.
But I think it is like a misunderstanding that men have about women.
Yeah.
But women do want a connection. And connection doesn't mean love. It just means a bit more than wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I mean, oh my God, I don't know so many women who are like me who are just very open about it.
Mm-hmm.
But
You do know lots of women.
no, I don't know
You
lots
don't
of
know.
women
That doesn't
that are-
surprise me at all.
Yeah, that are like very open. And I'm one of the only women I think that are were very comfortable, because obviously I have a boyfriend now, but like that I was so comfortable. I was only wanting to hook up and like literally not date that person after. Like be friends with them because I wanted to be civil, but like literally no relationship, like maybe didn't talk to them. Like I have many notches on my belt that just I literally don't remember their name. And I am so okay with that. Like I'm honestly like, that was a great experience. Thank you. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
You know, like that was just the way I wanted to live my life for so long. And I honestly believe as women that we have to take so much more ownership of these experiences for ourselves, because it actually does teach you a lot. I think also men are getting better in bed, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And a man, whoever you're going to have sex with, is going to teach you something new about yourself. It's like
Yeah.
any experience.
Sure.
Obviously, be safe. It is,
Yeah.
you can get something that may
You
change your
can
life.
get lots of
You can
horrible
get
things.
pregnant,
Yeah.
all these things. Everyone knows who's having sex, whatever. But yeah, like be able to enjoy those experiences. Don't let someone slut shame you for having a one night stand. I think that's literally where you learn so much about yourself, is when you're in these experiences.
I think it's completely individual, and some people want to do that and some people don't, but that should be fine, right?
Yeah, of course.
But I don't understand personally this concept of slut shaming. I don't understand why it's a thing. Because if you imagine you met a guy and you told him, oh no, I've only slept with 4 people or whatever, and he's like, oh great, that makes me feel so much better, but you'd actually slept with 550,
Yeah.
but you just didn't tell him. Well, he just doesn't know. I mean, it's just like stupid.
I'm really not down with the lying about how many people you slept
No, I'm
with.
not saying you should lie, but what I'm saying is, what difference does it make?
No,
Like,
it doesn't
he's
ma- it
not going to
shouldn't.
know. He wasn't there. What difference does it make? But I mean, you can see it is an issue, because like you look at social media, particularly TikTok, where there's a lot of this sort of there's a lot of men on TikTok who are, saying a lot of valid things, and then there's a slightly kind of the sort of what's that guy who got arrested, Andrew Tate or whatever, that
I
sort of
hate
stuff.
even saying his name.
But there's some people who are like sort of nowhere near him, but just a little kind of old fashioned kind of thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is about this thing that they don't, and they're young men. They're men in their late 20s, early 30s, or even younger.
Yeah,
who
because they
don't
don't
want
have-
women who've had lots of partners.
Yeah. You know what's so fucking funny also? I saw this comment, I think it was on my other Instagram video. And it was just this guy, and I remember reading it and I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. So he was like, this is why I've been celibate for 3 years, just trying to find my one. And I was like, honey, there is a I didn't comment this back, but I was like, honey, there's like a difference between being celibate and no one wanting to have sex with you.
It is a big difference.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no way if
Yeah.
women wanted to have sex
Yeah.
with you, you're going to be celibate.
Yeah, absolutely.
No one wants to have sex with you because you have this weird attitude about
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah.
And like, women are just, it's just so beautiful to see. Women are finally finding themselves in their sexuality in a lot of different ways and having this dirty in your minds and being so much open with their thoughts. But there's these men who just don't know how to kind of match that. And they don't know what to do with us because we know what we want, finally.
Yeah, I think there's still this idea that men kind of want to play around with certain women and marry other women.
Yeah.
And that is very
oh my God,
antiquated.
such a good point.
But I
Yeah.
think it's totally there. I remember because when I was in high school, I lived in Rome. I lived in Italy.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very flirtatious society in Italy. Like
Oh my
men come
God,
up to,
yeah.
and particularly
Bella.
yeah. And for me in particular, and honestly, you could look like the back end of a bus, but I've got blue eyes. And in Italy, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And my hair's quite fair or fairer than Italian. I look different. So I'm clearly probably not Italian. So men would just come up to you. And I lived there from like sort of 16, 17, 18. And men nonstop come up to you and talk to you. But they would say after a while, you'd sort of, and I had a couple of relationships with Italian guys who were lovely and really, really great guys. But I mean, you got this sense, and one of my friends told me that there was this sort of culture that almost their mothers sort of said to them, go out and
Find yourself a woman.
yeah, but not an Italian woman. Like go out and an English women, they're easy. Swedish women, Dutch
Oh my
women, that kind
God.
of thing. And then come back, marry a nice Italian girl.
Oh my God.
And I'm very sorry if I'm insulting anyone, but that is my experience at the time. And I do think there's this idea of, as a man, and that was obviously many, many years ago. I was 18, so that's, oh God, I don't even want to say it, but, many, many decades ago. But this idea that you kind of sow your seed as a man, but
Yeah.
you marry the nice girl.
Yeah.
And then you're like, who the hell do you think he's been having sex with? It's not like there's these group of women. So these are the women who only,
Yeah.
do the sowing of the seed, i.e. the English and the Dutch and the whatever girls. And then these are the other good girls. And I think this idea of good and bad girl, which is still very much in
I love being called both.
Yeah, but it's still, we talk about it and like,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
That this idea that if you're good, you don't have dirty thoughts, which is completely ridiculous.
No, I'm a
because of
good girl
course
in
you
other
do.
ways.
In other ways.
No, I mean, I don't know why a good girl can't suck good dick. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
But what does it even mean, a good girl and a bad girl?
It doesn't mean anything.
I mean, I know what it means, but if you think about it, what does it even mean?
It doesn't mean anything.
Every
Like
woman has in her. That's
what you
the
want, like a
point.
nice Christian girl, like who is literally just going to submit to you and do whatever the fuck you want. Like, that's also just not a relationship. Like, if that's what you're looking for, right? Like, if you're looking for a nice girl to marry, in quotations,
Yeah.
and you find a religious girl or whatever who has been taught all her life that you need to do things for your man and you need to be a housewife and whatever. How is that a partnership? If that's actually not what she wants, that's just what she's been taught. You know what I mean?
I mean, if she's marrying somebody of the same values, then that's a whole different thing, and that's a huge kind of topic. But I just think that if we got ourselves into this place of understanding that every woman is in fact a good and a bad girl.
I like to be both.
You're made up of all the parts, as
Yeah.
a man is. Like, what you do in your private life, you don't necessarily want everyone in the world to know about it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, so you're made up of these parts, right? You don't share every single thing that you do in your private life, in your intimate life with your partner or partners, generally, with everyone else all the time at every point in time, because you're different facets of who you are, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, of course.
But why is it that that's okay for men and it's still not, we're not really there for women? I mean, I suppose the thing with women is we're really not there with anything, because we're in this very, very confused thing, which we've talked about in a previous episode about feminism. We're in this time where I think everyone's quite confused about where we are and what we are as women.
I mean, I would never think about a guy as good or bad. I would think of them as a nice guy or a fuckboy. I think that's the modern version of a girl and bad girl or something. Like a nice, but like they can be both. You know what I mean?
That's the point. Like, why can a fuck boy not be nice? He just wants to have
Fuckboy.
sex.
Yeah, but they can be nice. I think it's just like
It's just that's what he, like you said at the beginning.
it's
you
like
said,
he's a boy slut. Like that's
yeah,
okay.
exactly. When you were younger, you were only interested in, wham bam, thank you, ma'am. You weren't
Yes.
interested in hanging around for the small talk.
No,
But that's the same thing. It doesn't make him a bad person. It also means that he is in a period of his life that maybe that's what he wants to do. It is a different thing if he's not telling the girls.
I don't think it's a bad thing.
No. I don't mean that. If
Yeah.
he's like kind of luring them into,
if you're like, he's
situation
like, I
by
want a
promising-
relationship.
Yeah, that's a whole different
That's
thing.
a whole different
But,
fuckboy episode
I
we gotta
mean,
do.
Exactly. But I mean, yeah, I just think it's. I don't understand why it's okay.
I just think we have to stop labeling people. Also, I think
100%.
that's what that whole thing is.
I'm completely for this
'Cause-
non-labeling. I think we've gone label mad.
Oh my god, we have.
And just
It's
let
exhausting.
everyone Just live
be a
your life.
person.
Be a person. Do whatever the hell it is
And it's
that
like
you want that
it's
makes
different
you
if you're
happy.
labeling yourself, but if other people are labeling you as something that you're just like, wait, that's not what I
it's
thought of myself.
100%. I think the best
that's
explanation
confusing.
I thought about labels is I read this thing once, which she's a professor of gender studies somewhere in the States, and she said all the labels that we use today, whether that's describing, gender, sexuality, whatever it is, they were used or are used to communicate, to help people communicate better, where they're in a situation or in a feeling or whatever it is in their life where they previously found it hard to communicate and people wanted them to communicate and they couldn't because there was no word. And that actually makes total sense to me. But it's the other side of it where we're continually judging people, criticizing people, saying, well, if you're this, you can't be this, or if you do that, it means you're not that. That's bullshit, because we're people and people change and people evolve. And I've said this
I thought
before.
you said that people don't change, Mel.
That's true. I have said that. So I'm talking bullshit.
I'm
No,
calling you on it, baby.
What I'm saying is I don't.
People evolve though; they don't change; they just evolve.
I suppose what I mean, I will clarify
Clarify.
that for everyone, is that I think essentially who you are as a human being,
yeah,
you don't really radically change.
yeah.
Yes, you're right. You evolve. You do change in some of the things that you want, like what I wanted or the way I want to live or what I want to do on a Friday night now versus when I was 25 clubbing and,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. So I've changed in that respect.
Well, you could change your beliefs, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
You just
I've
don't
personally changed my beliefs, but I think
No, but a lot of people do.
And
Yeah.
and I think you should allow people to change their beliefs because they can look internally and do some thinking and change. But yeah, I think generally people evolve is a better word. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So
Well, you
slap
said
on-
both of those.
Slap on the wrist.
You
for
said
me,
both
and
of
I've
those.
knocked the microphone. Gee.
I think if you feel like I'm only coming back to religion because a lot of this has stemmed from religion. It's like the way of like good and bad and like evil versus, heaven and hell and all this fucking
Yeah.
bullshit. It's for what I think is bullshit.
Well, you think about Adam
Good
and
for
Eve.
evil.
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. And like
the
how
whole apple and whatnot,
Yes.
evil and all that stuff.
and how Eve is obviously the bad girl.
She's the naughty
eating
one.
that dirty apple with that
Yeah.
dirty, dirty snake.
Absolutely.
And Adam comes in and he's such a good boy. He's like, why are you not a virgin anymore? Or however the
Exactly.
fucking story goes. And then you're
Thanks,
fucked.
Susie.
That was your history lesson for today.
Rendition of.
You're welcome. That was a sermon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you just kind of get back to that whole, if once people get out of religion, they kind of find themselves again. They're not looking for someone else to bring themselves to. Like they're not trying to.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know a lot of people who are not
Let's call it
religious.
prude people. Yeah.
Yeah, who are still incredible prudes and massive.
Who are not religious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I find it. I think shocking's the right word. I just find I don't really understand it, but I know plenty of people who are sort of prudish and and they're not religious. And but yet again, I think it's often not because they actually are. If you closed the door and saw them behind closed doors, which of course you don't, they are completely different.
Yeah, they have like a red room in their basement.
Exactly. It's what they are saying and what they're doing.
Yeah.
For most people of all ages is a completely different thing. So you kind of if you talk even about virtue signaling, what people want to think the world you are and what you actually are two different things. And I think it's problematic, and I wish that that people were more authentic and more honest and more, but I don't think society really lets us be that. I mean, if, I'm a different generation to you, but if I was, in a dinner party and somebody started, which is a very Gen X thing to do.
A dinner party. I want to come to a dinner party.
Oh yeah, and way too much wine being drunk, especially if I'm one in England. And they're great fun.
Of course they
everyone
are.
talks a lot. And in England, I think we do talk a lot about. I don't think anybody gives a shit about talking about sex.
Yeah, you get a dildo out and everyone chats about it.
I'm not sure we get a dildo out.
Well,
Susie,
if I haven't had me at a dinner party then
but
yet.
I think there is exactly. Well, I'm sure you'd be very popular at the dinner parties. But I think that there's like a line that people seem to have these lines, and the thing that I always think is interesting is it's never the people. Like the line that somebody has is never connected to the person that you'd think would have that line. Does that make sense? You're like, you think that?
Right.
Like,
totally. And you're like, I don't even know you.
it's like, what?
Yes.
And you're like, that is very interesting. And it's so peculiar.
Yeah.
And I think the whole thing about dirtiness and women's dirty minds, and then you talk about porn and stuff like that, and there are plenty of people who would like, oh no, I don't do that, don't look at that, but of course they do, because then why is it like a multi-bajillion billion trillion cajillion dollar industry? Well, of course people are looking at it, of course people are watching it, but then people don't want to. I think they're afraid in some ways of what the world sees them as and what they actually are. It's very strange, and I think it goes back into the thing about women.
Well, it's like
and
very vulnerable. It's like,
Very good word,
why would
Susie.
you want to?
Good
Why would
word.
you be vulnerable if you don't have to be?
Good word, love it,
Love
yes.
it, love
That's
it.
very like psycho, whatever, deep.
Well, because I feel like that's
psychological.
a lot of the time. Like I remember as a younger version of me, which is terrifying. But I did not want to be vulnerable at all. And I think a lot of people, when they're just finding themselves out, also don't want to be vulnerable. And people may never come to that point of like wanting to actually, want people to actually get to know them.
Yeah.
Or like wanting to even get to know people. They want to stay in their little bubble. And if they're in their bubble, they're safe and nothing will ever happen. And they can have these dirty thoughts, and it'll hurt their self-esteem if they keep being like, don't have those thoughts. This is bad. But like, people, you have to have them. Like, this is the way we are as human beings.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter who the fuck you are.
Absolutely.
We all we're horny all the time. And if
there's
you're lying to yourself if you're not. Or you may have a condition and you may have to see your doctor.
Right. So Susie has spoken.
You're welcome.
You may need to go and see a doctor. What about all the people who are asexual, Susie?
Asexual people are normal people, but they've seen a doctor.
Have they?
I'm assuming, because then they know they're asexual.
I'm not so sure they've seen a doctor. I think they feel it. They feel that they're not interested in sex.
I think it's a hormonal thing, plus maybe being asexual. I don't know asexual.
I've known
You've known asexual people.
Yeah.
And they're
just
know-
not interested. They know because it's and we are way off topic here, but it is incredibly.
But we're not really,
confusing.
because like, do they have a dirty mind then? And they don't
think
at
about
all.
sex. They're not.
What do they
interested in
think
sex.
about?
Well, it's a bit like they just have no connection in their brain to that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's not interesting. And but it's a bit like, you're very connected to it and you're very honest about it. Yes, there are lots of people who aren't honest about it, but there are differing levels of people's interest in sex. I don't think
Of course.
everyone is like,
No one's super dirty like me. That's so weird.
yeah, Susie. Yeah,
That's
no,
crazy.
No, they're not. But there is within that category the people who are not prepared to connect themselves to it, who
Yeah.
are scared, who are terrified of
100%.
it. And I think that's a huge thing. But asexuality is like anything. I mean, if you think about it, in the world, there are so many different types of people, so many different variations of feeling, being, doing. Of course, there are asexual people. I mean, it makes complete sense to me. I mean, I've said this to you before, that I personally have always felt very connected to my femininity. I've always felt I'm very female. I've never really questioned my sexuality, even though I'm not somebody who's lived an environment where I wasn't exposed to that. If, with friends or family members or whatever, I was just always knew who I was. So I think to myself, if I know my sexuality quite clearly and I know my femininity, then there must be an enormous range of what people feel.
Well, isn't this weird, right? Like, because we were just talking about this before we started, and you were like, to have more of a libido, you have more testosterone.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's weird for you to have such a big libido, Susie, because you're
very, very
I'm
feminine.
very feminine as well.
Yeah.
But then I was also thinking about it, and I'm like, well, I'm also bi. So does testosterone have something to do with being bisexual? And why are bisexual people all hotter than,
Well, this
regular
this
people?
is a regular people.
the regular straights.
People. I love
The
it.
straights.
The straights.
And the gays, because bisexual we're just,
You're
always
in
the best.
your own thing.
But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that's a fascinating question, and somebody should answer that.
Somebody
because
should answer it.
There probably is. Well, there isn't enough research done on any of this because it's incredibly difficult to do research.
No, because
on
they
it.
didn't
But
take women into medicine. But yeah, isn't it funny that when, as me, a bisexual, feel quite a bit of power in that, just of the sexual, being a sexual being. And even if you are bisexual, obviously you may not be as sexual as, your next bisexual. I'm saying sexual quite a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's obviously different levels to it, like you're saying. And isn't it funny that a lot of the time society and other women, obviously also, and men can shame that person from feeling, and not even just about slut shaming, not if they're sleeping with a bunch of people, but just like being more open or wearing a mini skirt.
Oh,
or,
100%.
100%. Isn't that crazy?
I mean, if you think about, like you just said that about clothing, and you think, like if you've heard stories about like women working in sort of, I can think of one story I heard probably about a year ago, as a woman was working in a car dealership, very glamorous, and she was wearing like a tight top, and you could see her, I don't know, boobs or whatever you
Nipples.
could see. I don't know what you could see. And they told her that you can't wear that, it's not appropriate, and she got fired. This is
Oh
in
my
the US.
God.
Where, because you couldn't actually fire somebody in Europe for that. It'd be pretty hard. But I think there is a certain like dress code. You think about, I mean, I, work in, I suppose the business world and have to go into sort of meetings and stuff. And there's just certain things you just wouldn't wear. I mean, you just can't wear. You can't go with your, the nipples falling out, as you put it. But I mean, obviously men are suited and booted. So
Well, they have one thing to wear. They fuck it up like
it's
you're an idiot.
But
There's just too many rules for us.
a woman who has a little bit of cleavage showing or whatever is that's not cool. I mean, in fact, I think I told you today I was somewhere and I'm wearing a little bit of a tighter top today, and I have an ample bosom.
Oh,
I have quite big boobies. And this person, who was a woman, is fine and is very funny, said, "Oh, I didn't realize your boobs were that big." And I just thought, isn't that funny that like I'm not wearing, you can see I'm not wearing low cut. It's just a bit tighter.
You got some tats on you, baby.
And it's just immediately, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing actually with a woman with big boobs. The amount of times, even in my advanced years, Susie, you talk to men and they are not looking at your eyes. They talk to your boobs.
Talk to your titties.
And it happens all the time.
My nipples down here, sir. Why don't you look at them?
My eyes are here. Yeah. But
no, if they're looking at my eyes, I'm like, what is wrong with you?
well, in my
Look
case,
at my tits.
my boobs are further south than yours. But anyway, that's another whole story. But the shaming, I don't know, and I just, it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Because I think men and women also, we still use our sex to in negative ways, in the sense that as power against each other. We both do it.
Power against men, which honestly, power to you.
Yeah, but I think it's such a complicated thing. It's so complicated, but I still don't understand why we're still having the conversation we're actually having now, which is true. Why we still think in some capacity that women are less sexual, less interested in sex, less somehow, I don't know, less dirty. I suppose the opposite is cleaner. Like, where are we getting this idea from?
Yeah, we have cleaner minds, which is like,
who are the men having
true.
this dirty sex with? Obviously some men,
Women.
but a lot of women. So they're clearly into it.
Yes.
I mean, it just makes zero sense. But we still live in that. And somehow I think my last point, Susie, before I go off on another tangent, is that I think that women still feel bound by some societal kind of norm that you have to be good. You know, you can't say this stuff. And I mean, you can't.
I mean, it starts from when, and I'll just say this last thing as well until we go on another tangent. But I remember it starts when you're so young, because when I was in elementary school, right, like we weren't allowed to wear spaghetti straps.
Yes.
And that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
It's like you tell these girls that if you wear spaghetti straps at 8 years old, you're going to be sexualized.
No,
And like, how fucked up is that?
It's very messed
Where it's
up.
like,
I mean,
I'm not even thinking about sex right now. Like when I was that age,
of course not.
obviously.
No.
And
You know what it was.
I'm like, and you don't even understand why you can't do it. You're just like, why is this inappropriate?
That's very weird.
Isn't that fucked?
Super weird. But I actually, on the same story, like my younger daughter who's still in high school, she wears uniforms. She goes to private school and they have like a uniform. And when they have days where they can wear their own clothes, they used to be very like saying things about what they would wear and stuff. Not specifically her, and she would sort of say, look, you know, why are you telling me that I have to come? And it was mostly cover your shoulders, which is just hilarious.
The shoulders is the most hilarious thing.
Why
to me.
can the man come in like a sort of whatever? He could come dressed in anything, a
tank top
boy,
thing.
and I can't. And I remember once being called by a teacher, and I was just like, "This is a ridiculous conversation." Look, if you would like to go and see what's in the stores, maybe you should take yourself down to the Eaton Centre or Yorkdale and see what the fashion is. And it is not to be covered from the top of your head to the tip of your toe.
I just can't believe a teacher is
ridiculous.
bothering you about this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And
So
in this day and
embarrassing.
age, it's not fair. She's not walking around in a bikini.
No.
you know? And it's strange, but it definitely, like, boys are doing, nobody's saying anything about boys because nobody's interested, or I don't know. But apparently, if you're 15 and have your shoulders out, that's sexy. And you're like, well, get a grip. You know?
Get a fucking grip. I got in trouble my entire.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could understand.
That shocks me
So
so
much.
much, Susie.
Like,
how
literally,
could that possibly be?
I couldn't help myself. I was like, fuck the rules.
Yeah.
I don't fucking care. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna wear what I want.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look sexy. I'm gonna do it for me. And I don't fucking care who, is sexualizing me. Like, it's not my problem if you're sexualizing me.
Right.
Like,
right.
that's the bottom line. If I want to wear something I want to wear it, I'm gonna wear it.
Well, there you
That's
go.
it, baby.
That's it.
That's it.
Do we want any facts?
Tell me what you think here, Mel.
I don't have, to be fair, this is not the easiest thing to find.
No.
But I
Fact
would
find.
like to say that Lilo, the
Yes,
sex
the
toy,
vibrator
and
company.
if you'd like to, sponsor
I
us,
was
that'd be
actually
really
using
great.
our Lilo. I was using a Lilo last night.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for sharing that.
I'll
with
tell
us.
you my recommendations.
Excellent.
later.
Well, very reputable company.
Very
And they actually have this ginormous, that's hilarious
huge,
to say in the same sentence,
ginormous
blog. And I'm looking at an article that they wrote, which is, do men really have a higher sex drive than women? So it's a whole article, Susie, about it.
That's a whole thing.
A whole thing.
Do they really? And I don't think they do.
And no, and
It's about the same.
it's about, but the first oh, look, I've been talking to it.
Voice.
The first sentence, I think, is really interesting. Women are morally superior prudes who barely think about sex, and men are never satisfied sexual beasts, right? And of course, she completely, the article is disagreeing with that they're stereotypes. And that she does talk about the fact that obviously men and women have different approaches to sex or different feelings, but it's just different. It doesn't mean it's less of one thing or the other. It just happens to be from a sort of different perspective, but that doesn't make it less erotic or less dirty or less sexual or less whatever. And of course it entirely depends on the person. And I mean, obviously there's not enough studies that have gone into this because it's very, very difficult to to research this.
Yeah.
So she does talk about the never-ending conflict of libido, and again, I will link this in the blog. The never-ending conflict of libido in opposite sexes. So I'll just quickly, researchers have found a difference between sex drive in women and men for many years. Most of that research claims that the difference in the sex drives between the two sexes comes down to the varying levels of testosterone.
Yes, which you've said.
So I don't, and that the newest research shows that, shows that we're not so different. Sex drive in women and men might not be so different after all. Recent research tells us. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't know. I mean, I don't think you just can't generalize because everyone's different, and that means everyone who is a man is different, and everyone who is a woman who's different, and everyone who's anything is different. Yeah. Because they all have different feelings and connections within themselves and to people.
We're all different people. We're all different. We all got different DNA, baby.
And so you feel differently. But generically, to just sort of say all women are like this, irrespective of who they're having relationships with or partnerships or intimacy or whatever, and men are all like this, is just completely mad.
The only people that are doing that are very prude people who don't want to open their minds to literally anyone or anything.
That's true, but there are a lot of those people.
100%.
And I think what I would say is that I probably thought that a lot of those people were older, but they're not. That's so true. The thing that shocks me. Yeah. That younger people are prudy.
I did know a girl recently who, it was just so surprising and shocking, as you're saying, when she would talk to me about some transphobic things, and I was like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And you could just tell with this person that you're not, I would never agree with her, but to have an argument with her is
a waste of time.
She wants to have an argument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm just gonna walk away from this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
This is just someone who does not care about anyone's opinions anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fuck it, just live your fucking life, because you're never going to convince everyone about who you really are or what you need to do. You just have to do that for you.
No, 100%. I mean, that is basically it. You just need to
have your dirty mind.
Yeah, exactly. If you
sexy
do, or
person.
maybe if you don't. And
if you don't,
whether you're a man or a woman, and just live your life. And this is my little piece of advice here. Is just
advice.
It is ignore the naysayers. There will always be people in the world telling you you're wrong or you're whatever or you're this or you're that. Just ignore them.
Just go fuck who you want to fuck.
Exactly. And
fuck the haters.
And that really is that.
Playa haters.
And I don't think I have any more to say. Susie.
No, we love our sluts. We love our, I know you hate that word, Mel, but we love them. We love our sluts.
I think I need to come up with a new word.
What is that? What is that going to be?
I don't know. I have to think about it. I've got to think about it.
Okay, I'll think about it and come back to it.
But in the meantime, if anybody would like to send me any suggestions, I would like to say this has been a fantabulous chat.
Fantabulous. Oh my, that's your new word.
No, this is a new fantabulous. I've been saying this for quite a while. Maybe you have never heard it.
I have never.
But I'm saying it, Susie.
Well, you're just fantabulous, aren't you, darling?
Pretty much.
And our listeners are fantabulous. And we just love you guys so much. And thank you guys so much for listening. Let us know what you think of this episode.
Absolutely.
About sluts and whores and dirty minds and the whole bit, And you can talk to us on our Instagram or our TikTok or our YouTube or on our website. You can just DM us or email us, or you can send us a voicemail, which is pretty cool. And we want to hear your voice.
Please do. And rate and review, because it really helps us growing our community. And that's it. Until next time.
We love you guys so much.
See you soon.
Can't wait to hear you guys again.
Oopsie.
Or for you guys to hear us.
She's losing it. Bye. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate and review this podcast and follow us on social at Sharing My Truth Pod, and leave us a voicemail on our website, sharingmytruth.com, to share your stories and experiences with us. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.